questions, and I'm gonna start in alphabetical order. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another broadcast of Live with Dr. Dawn. I'm your host, Dr. Dawn Camila Brown. I'm a double-boarded child adolescent and adult psychiatrist, a two-time best-selling author, podcaster, public speaker, and media influencer. I'm the CEO and sole practitioner of ADHD Wellness Center in Houston, Texas, a partner medical director of PsyConnect Health in South Carolina, and CEO and owner of a new company for elite athletes, which I'll be launching this month. Hey, listen, you all, do me a favor. You know what I'm going to ask. Go ahead and click those like and share buttons. This is another important and special broadcast that we want to connect as many people as we possibly can. And I want to take a moment just to thank all the medical and emergency responders, everyone that's working on the front lines, every essential worker. Thank you so much for treating our family and our friends and for safeguarding our communities. As many of you know, during this pandemic, the Live with Dr. Dawn platform has been committed to addressing important topics that impact you as an individual, your families, and our community in relation to the coronavirus and its disease, COVID-19. Since the start of the quarantine, this show has featured board certified physicians who work on the front line, who provided you with medical recommendations. We've had roundtables of 12 Black male physicians, 8 Black female physicians who provided you with medical tips and advisement on how to navigate through this pandemic. We've also talked to specialty providers such as OBGYNs, family practitioners, dentists, psychologists about their perspectives on how to manage certain medical conditions and practices. You remember Dr. Lauren, she discussed with us how to incorporate and prepare healthy meals into our lifestyles and the role that it plays for our overall health. I've personally discussed the importance of caring for our mental health, incorporating structure into our days, making sure that we get proper sleep, making those plates colorful and healthy. And we also talked about creative ways of indoor and backyard exercises for you and your children. We've spoken with my pastor, the Reverend Dr. Marcus D. Cosby, on his perspectives on the impact of COVID-19 and the impact it's had on our communities. And we also discussed with a panel of pastors the important role that the church plays during this critical time in the African-American communities and how to stay connected. We've heard personal stories from those who have recovered from COVID-19. And we've also checked in with some of our football and basketball pro athletes just to find out how they're coping, when in fact, they are a major source of how we as sports fans cope. So tonight for me, this series has been an exciting yet humbling experience. And I want to thank all of the experts and applaud the audience and engagers for taking time out of your schedule to be a part of this journey with me, whether that be through listening, discussing, supporting the platform in itself, and sharing information to others. Thank you very much. And today I'm truly honored to have as my special guest a distinguished virtual roundtable to discuss some important topics regarding COVID-19 and its impact on education, our students, and our future. I'm thrilled that this roundtable represents the great university where we met and formed an unforgettable bond. Tonight is a proud moment for me to experience. Joining me tonight to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on the educational system and our students, I'm honored to introduce you to Dr. Raquel Brown Burton, Kimberly Reese Buckner, Dr. Quentin Morris, Sarita Coleman Presley, Dr. Ramont Roberts, and Damon Williams. And I really want to introduce themselves by starting with Dr. Brown, because, Xavier is known for producing encouraging African-Americans to apply in medical school and producing the #1 school to this day. Yes, we still #1 for producing African-American medical students in a med school. But I don't know if you know how awesome all of our students are. And I am proud to know that all of the 7 people here are representative of Xavier University of New Orleans. So Dr. Brown, we'll start with you. Please introduce yourself.
Well, first, thank you, Dr. Dawn Brown, for inviting me to be a part of this awesome platform or panel of discussants here that are also fellow Xavierites. I am a member of the class of 1997, and I was a mass communication major. And yes, we do have mass communication majors at Xavier. And yes, and no, I did not start off as a pre-med or science major. I started at Xavier in the social science humanities field because of the reputation for excellence that Xavier held. So following my time at Xavier, pursued graduate study, got my master's at Howard University in Washington, D.C. in media and communication, examining the way that body image is impacted, our African-American women are impacted by body image. From there, I moved to the state of Michigan. I know we have some Michiganders on the line, and did my PhD in media studies at Wayne State University. Actually ended up back on faculty at Xavier for 2 years, up until Hurricane Katrina. And then I moved to Houston, where I have been on faculty at Texas Southern University ever since. And I'm currently the interim dean of the School of Communication at Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, for being here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kimberly Reese-Buckner.
Hi, I currently serve as the Assistant Vice President for Alumni Relations and Annual Giving, class of 1995. I'm actually an early childhood education major. So, you know, I started out in student affairs, and I always tell students, work study, student employment, in my opinion, is one of the most important things you do at a university. Because for me, I was hired in the office in which I was a student employee. So I worked in student affairs. And so upon graduation, I was offered a job in student affairs. I also have my master's from Xavier in early childhood curriculum and instruction, 98, class of 98 with my master's degree. So I've done a plethora of jobs in student affairs. And now I'm working in alumni as a fundraiser and doing alumni engagement as well.
And she's so modest. She is the sole reason why we have a bomb homecoming every single year. Thank you, Mrs. Kim. Appreciate it. Dr. Quentin Morris.
Well, I was actually a classmate of Dr. Dawn Brown. I knew her when we both entered Xavier in 1996 in the fall, class of 2000. I was a music major. There, I'm a violinist. I am a tenured professor at Seattle University, where I have a dual role in the instrumental music area as well as in the Global African Studies Department. I am the second African-American violinist tenured in the country. So there's big ups to that. After I left Xavier, I went to the North Carolina School of the Arts and did post-bac there, followed by a master's at the Boston Conservatory and my doctorate in violin from the University of Texas, Austin. I also run a nonprofit organization called Key to Change, which provides violin and viola lessons to students in the South King County area of Seattle. It's a very large underrepresented area of students. And so I'm very pleased to be here. I was Mr. Freshman many, many years ago.
Right. Yes.
So I'm very happy to be here among the distinguished alum to be able to speak about these very important issues regarding education and surrounding COVID.
Thank you, Dr. Morris, for joining us. We appreciate it. And you know, we first met because I played violin too, and I think we played a duet or something like that. But the memories. Thanks for being here, Miss Sarita Coleman-Presley.
Again, I am Sarita Coleman-Presley. I am a part of the class of 2000, so I'm happy to see my classmates, and Dawn and she's one of my dear friends, so that's why it's really a pleasure to be here. I was also not a pre-med major at any time. At Xavier, I was a business major with an emphasis in accounting, and I graduated in accounting in 2000 and then moved on to Our Lady of Holy Cross, where I received my master's in educational administration And then due to Katrina, my husband, who is also a business graduate from Xavier University, class of 2000, we moved to the Houston area, and I now serve as the Executive Director of Human Resources for Alvin Independent School District, which is right on the outskirts of Houston, Texas. I am charged and I have the great opportunity to serve with our superintendent in taking care of each and every one of our employees who take care of our students, which is most important. However, my biggest passion is supporting our teachers, especially during times like this. So this has been, I said earlier, uncharted waters, but I'm very excited to go through this to make sure our teachers and our students are supported.
Thank you for being here, Sarita. She's also my big sister. Dr. Ramont Roberts.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Don, for initiating this discussion. Good evening to the esteemed colleagues and everyone tuning in. I am Ramont Roberts. I am the class of '98. I am a former student athlete from Xavier, and so I played basketball. I was also, before a couple of undecided years, an education major. I am not a science major like everyone else. And so after finishing Xavier, I went on to complete my master's at Harvard, then worked for a number of years as a teacher and an administrator, the traditional career ladder in education before going back to get my PhD, and then moved on to central office administration as an assistant superintendent, and has been a superintendent for 2 years now in Saginaw, Michigan. And so just passionate about serving my home community and students, and looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Ramont, for joining us. And last but certainly not least, Damon Williams.
Good evening, everyone. I am Damon Williams, Dean of Diversity, Graduate Diversity Officer, Education and Workforce Diversity Consultant, Speaker Trainer, Medical Mogul, Chairman of the Board. I'm happy to be here. I am responsible for assisting students of color with graduate admissions. And I like to say helping current PhD students and master students thrive and survive to become prominent scholars in the disciplines that they choose. I am a 2001 alumnus of Xavier University, graduate education from Tulane, Fontbonne University, Emory University. So very excited to be here. I was at Xavier along with Don and Quentin and some others. So I'm just ecstatic to be here to talk about this very important topic. And so thank you very much, Dr. Don.
Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. This, honestly, this is one of us, a very special moment for me to have you all join me this evening. So thank you again, and thank your families. So audience, everyone out there, please share this with at least 2 people you know. Please share this with at least 2 people you know, and don't forget to put some questions there in the comment section, okay? We have the experts here tonight, so go ahead and take advantage of this opportunity. Dr. Brown, I'd like to start with you, if you don't mind. Being the director of communications at a HBCU, I can imagine how daunting this experience has been for you in communicating with your students and staying connected with them, right? How has the degree of engagement changed, or has it changed with your students while they're at home? Are they still taking classes? Are you all communicating with them? What has the advisement level been?
Well, the semester final grades are due tomorrow. So, but in the immediate aftermath of our transition at during the 3rd week of March, we tried to, it took us a few days, admittedly, to really, get going in full swing. But by the end of the 2nd week, we had our first town hall meeting, which was virtual, similar to the platform you have here, where we broadcast live to our Facebook pages for the School of Communication to just connect with the students. We knew they had a lot of questions. There was a lot of anxiety. We had to work out some things to determine the grading policy, what we were going, what options were students going to have. in light of the new normal that we find ourselves in. So it's been a learning experience, but it's also been rewarding in some ways. While it's been a lot of stress, it's also been an opportunity to learn and to apply some of the things we know have been coming for quite some time. I think at least in higher ed, online education, remote learning has been a trend for a while. And some institutions are much further ahead in that trend than others. HBCUs, we are unique. We do have online programs that existed prior to the coronavirus pandemic. However, we had not fully rolled out all of our degree programs are not fully online, or all of them don't have we have online courses, but not an online degree track for all of our majors. So it's putting us in the position to really be more assertive in planning beyond today and beyond even COVID. It's ushering in, I think, a new paradigm shift in education and delivering education. So that's where we are trying to feel our way through this, and without hurting our students, because we know that with information literacy, information gap, literacy in general, access gap, all of those things we experience at a greater rate as people of color, and our students of color experience those things. So that's one of my biggest concerns is how will we prevent that gap from growing even more than it already currently is right now. So I don't know if I've answered some of your question. I'm long-winded, so just mute me whenever you need to.
You're fine. And with that being stated, do you propose that higher education has changed as a result, or will continue to have new ways of teaching?
I think it's evolving. And I think that just before we joined the call, I know that we are actively working to engage and train our faculty members, because now it's not just being trained on the technology, it's also the pedagogy that has to also be a part of that. And so you're talking about educators now having to be educated in a different area that may not be a content area for them, which is the technology and the platforms, and how to incorporate and merge the curriculum and deliver the curriculum effectively via these different platforms, and doing it in a way that does engage the students, that does retain them. And the feedback has been mixed. So if in those instances, and what faculty are telling me are the students that were already performing well in face-to-face classes, they pretty much caught up and have picked up the pace. They may have had some challenges, but they've been able to get on track, as opposed to some of our other students who, were already struggling. The students that were already struggling, which we do have a number of students that come to us that have a variety of issues. We have students that may be facing homelessness, a number of other issues, because we are an urban primarily commuter campus in the heart of Houston, Texas. And so the issues or the challenges that people face, non-students face, our students actually face at the same rate. So we have a number of traditional students, but not all of our students are traditional in the sense that their sole focus or only focus is being a student. They are parents, employees, grandparents in some instances. So I do think this will continue to evolve. This started, 20 years ago, really. And some have really taken it up and have really become models for how to do this. But there's still going to be some areas that are going to be works in progress, I believe, just by nature of the tools that are required to deliver these curriculums, and all of the students and faculty will not necessarily have those things in a remote setting right away. So we have to think about planning to purchase those things and escalating the bureaucracy, moving the bureaucracy along to get these things in place by August, in the event that we are not able to be fully face-to-face, and if we do have to operate at a scale back capacity.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. I appreciate those just informative information, and you bring up some very, very valued points. And I want to actually go to Miss Reese, Mrs. Reese. Being another HBCU, Xavier University, you all have done an outstanding job, because I still receive all of my alumni emails letting me know what's going on with current students, letting me know what the alumni involvement is, or what's requested of us to help support our school and the students there. The importance of staying connected. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think, we've worked really hard at Xavier, and particularly in alumni, in terms of keeping the community connected. So I think particularly during this time, it's important for educational institutions not to only engage and keep the students, which are the main stakeholders, connected, but the entire community. Because no institution is an island. We depend on various stakeholders. And so it's important that when you're creating the narrative or the messaging, that you include everyone, because that way you don't allow any one group of people to create your narrative for you. And on the flip side of that, on the more positive side, you empower people to kind of be your foot soldiers and to cheer you on, or, even if maybe they're not in agreement with something, you allow them to tell it to you and not to the world, so to speak, on social media or however, texting or whatever the case may be. So really, in working with, our alumni office is uniquely situated in that the alumni office is part of the president's office. And that was a change that was made recently. And I have to admit, I was a little hesitant about that. Like, what does that mean? How is that going to work? But it's worked well so far, because what it does is it allows me to know kind of what's happening. And then we can have conversations offline about, okay, what makes sense to communicate to the alumni, what may just be a campus message versus a global message to our stakeholders. And I think, there's a fine line between over messaging, but we want to make sure, because at HBCUs, everyone can attest to this, the students normally know an alum or a stakeholder. It's very much a community. So it's not like you can send something to the students and it not get to the alumni. It's gonna get to the alumni, right? So let's just nip this in the bud and make sure that our alumni and our other donors, other stakeholders, because corporations, foundations, we've had foundations to say, oh, we see you all are doing this, we want to participate in that. So we want to make sure that our message is broad enough to inform everyone who supported us, particularly in the past, to know what's happening on campus. We want to be as transparent as we can.
Thank you, Ms. Reese, for all the work and efforts that you're putting forth to making sure that the alumni are informed and that our students are safeguarded. I want to ask you, because I am concerned, because Xavier's dear to my heart. How are the students doing? And it's kind of a part two. Sorry, Ms. Reese. The importance of instilling education during this time. I know there's some parents who are questioning, like, for example, I'm from Michigan, and I know there's some parents are questioning if, what the future would be like, because we're just uncertain right now if they should be taking community classes or local classes at colleges, online classes of colleges that offer it, so they can actually prepare to return to Xavier when this is safer to do so. Can you talk a little bit about what, if there are recommendations or advisement or just some tips on how parents can assist with their students, their sons and daughters who attend universities, and what they should be doing now, for example?
Right. I think the most important thing is being respectful of the fact that they're in school. So I think, having young people, college students at home, sometimes we lose sight of the fact that they are in school, right? And so I think I would say to a parent to give that student the space. And if you have space in your home to carve out a study place for them, or a place where they can be quiet, I think that's most important, because it's the same reason I always tell parents, especially our commuter parents, if you can afford to allow your child to stay on campus, let them stay on campus, because there's nothing like being in a space that is about continuous learning all the time. And so I think parents, your child is home not to do chores, not to run errands for you, but they're at school. They're at school. This is just an extended kind of school thing happening. And so, and I think checking in with your student is important. And it doesn't have to be a formal check-in, but maybe at dinner checking in with them, maybe when you all are riding to the grocery store checking in with them. And I know at Xavier, and most of the schools are offering this, we have telecounseling. So our counseling office is up and running. You can call in. So campus activities is doing virtual events. So allowing that student to also encouraging them to take some downtime by participating in some of these virtual events. You know, a lot of our students are having hard times because they're not in the community of their friends and peers, encouraging them to call the counseling center to talk about that. But what we're doing now, Zoom, I had never done a Zoom brunch. I did that for the first time last week with some friends of mine. It's great. And so it really gives you, it's a lot different from just talking on the phone. So encouraging those students to stay in contact with their friends, but I think most importantly for families to respect that they're in school and giving them that space to learn and to still flourish as a student.
Outstanding points. Thank you, Mrs. Reese. Thank you. Dr. Morris, being a music instructor, I'm assuming you have online music, you give online music lessons and classes and courses.
Yeah.
You know, music is healing, right? It heals the soul. And part of this in being in the pandemic is very stressful. So I imagine how music can be actually one of the stress relievers in all of this. Can you talk a little bit about how music and giving lessons online has impacted students' overall academic experience during the pandemic?
Absolutely. I'd like to just say, not just with music, but just in general, that as pedagogues, as instructors, that our job is to provide the same type of environment online as we would in person, right? And so I think that is the key component in all of this, is when we're talking about online education, is how can we create the most tangible experience for students to be able to feel that sense of community through a screen that they're not able to experience in person. And I think that as educators, the more we're able to do that, the more successful we will be. And so how that relates to my pedagogy is, before the pandemic had happened, I actually treat music lessons very similar to that of a sports team. So for instance, if you're playing football or basketball, you record your practices, you record your games. Well, it's the same thing with music, where we record our practices and then we watch them as a class, and we're able to give each other feedback. We're able to talk about the things that we heard. We're able to analyze and comprehend. And that experience has not changed at all. The only difference is now we're doing it online. And so how I've been able to teach all of my lessons is just being able to continue that type of practice. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a delay in Zoom, where if you're playing something and soliciting feedback, there's a little bit of a delay, but we've been able to get very creative with how students are able to record and submit their recordings to me, and or again, we watch them together. What I have also found is that that type of practice has actually created a more independent thinker students are able to assess and analyze their work more strategically than they would have. Not to say that they wouldn't have been able to do it in person, but they're using a different part of the brain. I think that's really allowing them to think logically and also creatively about how they can present their best work. And so that's just one of the examples of how I've been able to keep my students engaged, both at the university as well as in Key to Change. And I have seen over the course of the last 2 months that this pandemic has occurred, I've seen substantial growth in my students' learning through this experience.
How so, Dr. Morris? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
More responsibility, more accountability, because they can't run to my office. They can't, they've got to send an email, and honestly, they've got to figure it out. And I mean, that is, I think, has been a really great teaching tool that I don't think some of the students would have been able to experience if they had their lessons in person. Now, that's not to say that I'm not against teaching in person, because of course I prefer that. But I think that there has been a bit of a blessing in all this, where I have just seen my students become more responsible, more accountable for their actions, because it's their education. And so there has been some real brilliance that has occurred. And I, as the educator, have learned a tremendous amount in just my presentation of how to teach. Because I mean, now I have to be very clear and very direct with how to teach someone how to play an instrument, because I can't physically touch them. So it's been a brilliant experience for me as well, and been a really great challenge for me to really see, okay, how much can I stretch myself, and how can I be as creative and yet get my point across, so that these students can really produce and become the best artists that they can be. So
thank you, Dr. Morris. Sarita, how can teachers and community advocates support the school districts? Do you have any suggestions?
Yes, I do. If there's anything that we are asking for as a district right now, is that community support. And we ask for support from our teachers in just remembering the accountability piece, not just for standardized testing, because that's out the window at this point, but just that accountability piece to continue to grow our students as much as possible. We're looking at progress. Just knowing that they are essential, just in a different environment right now. So that's what we're asking for our teachers, to just continue the importance of that teaching and learning piece. As far as our community, what we ask for is patience and flexibility as we continue to make decisions based on the ever-changing guidance from our state. Just making sure we're supporting each other in our neighborhoods. We are in a very unique school district, as far as my school district, where we go from suburban Pearland all the way to rural areas in Alvin, Texas. So we ask that the communities, wherever they are, continue to check on their neighbors, check on our teachers, who are not only teachers and responsible for the kids in their classroom or on their roster, but who have their own kids at home that they're now charged with the teaching and learning for them as well. So we're asking them to check on your neighbors, check on the students who normally depend on that social piece of school, who are very frustrated. I never thought my junior high student will say he missed school. And I'm realizing that it's basically because he's starting a new part of his educational journey as a junior high student, but that social piece is that interaction with his friends, that structure. Even though we provide that at home as parents, he misses that with his face-to-face teachers. So as a community, we just ask that we continue to allow our kids to find some normalcy, to keep them as structured as possible at home for those who can, and for those who can't, reach out for support from their neighbors.
And Sarita, great feedback and great recommendations as well. You know, Texas was one of the first states to open. I think we talked a little bit about this before we went live. How are you feeling? What has your role in your work been like?
My world is spinning. It's normally spinning just in the normal world of human resources in the school district. It's never ending. As a parent, my world it went from 1 to 100 very quick. Although my husband and I are both educators, and we believe in making sure our son and our daughter gets what they need, just having that sole responsibility right now to be accountable for their growth. We appreciate their teachers so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate pre-K teachers. Power to you. I am learning that more and more each day. But to the other spectrum, the junior high kid, just dealing with the emotions, the frustration. So my world at home is I'm finding more patience. We're finding more structure. I'm finding that my life is flipped upside down. I go to work. I've been working since the stay-at-home order. We still have to make sure our teachers get paid, our employees get paid. So at work, it's certainly that sense of uncertainty. It's just every day is a new day. Every bit of guidance we get from the state is new guidance, it's a new meeting, it's a new plan. So we're used to making plans, but not in this fashion where the plan changes every day, because what we always have to consider is what's best for our students. Although we want them back, we want them seated in those chairs, we want that direct instruction, we know their safety and security comes first. We're learning how to deal with our teachers, understanding their frustration, that their life has changed, and not asking too much of them, but expecting to still have that accountability for our student learning. So life right now is really crazy, but it's a part. I mean, we've gone through Katrina, we've gone through Harvey. This is different. So we've taken the learning experience from there and just pushing it full force ahead to get through this. Whenever we just don't see an end game right now in what we're going through, and that is the hard part.
Yeah, I applaud all the teachers, all the employees of school districts who, care about our students. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing during this time. And I know it's a huge transition for many of you, so we do appreciate your efforts as well. Dr. Roberts, it's interesting because you're from Saginaw, Michigan. I'm 30 minutes away from you, from Flint, Michigan. And we know that both of our cities have a number of inequities in our communities. There are many homes without internet access, many homes that are not able to do the things that teachers are asking us, that schools are asking us, even our jobs are asking us. What are your thoughts, being superintendent of Saginaw schools? What are your thoughts in regards to how the community can support our neighborhoods, our communities, for these families who don't have the access, but do desire to make sure that their kids who are students excel during this time?
Yeah, that's a good question. So first, my first answer to that is advocacy, right? And so in my experience as a superintendent and certainly as an educator in what is an urban environment, Saginaw Public Schools is an urban school district. We service about 85% free and reduced lunch kids. We have a large population of African-American students and so forth. This crisis just illuminates the inequities that exist in our public education system, right? So, it was designed in that way. Our educational system is designed to meet our economic system, capitalism. And so capitalism needs a low class, It needs a middle class and it needs a high class. It needs an education system that's going to feed that. And so you have low class schools, middle class schools, and high class schools. And so I say that to say our communities have to get better at advocating with their legislators, both at a local level, at a state level, and at a federal level, to try to eliminate many of the inequities and inadequacies that we know exist, but we won't organize ourselves to address them. And so for my community, I continually ask them to do that. And in some cases, I lead that. If that means writing letters to our legislators, making phone calls, organizing our religious community, our ministers, our churches, our social justice organizations, to make certain that we're fighting for our kids in our community in a way that we get the resources that they need. Because the reality is, if our school system got the resources that it needed equitably, we wouldn't have gaps in internet access or gaps in access to technology and so forth. And so you have to get at the source. Now, I'm in support of any community member that wants to go out and provide internet access or donate to the school or donate to a family and provide them internet access and indoor access to technology. I'm in 100% support of that. But if we're talking about really addressing the issue and the source of what's going on, we have to advocate at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level, legislators, so that they fund our schools at an equitable level, so that school districts can provide the resources for students that they need.
I agree 100% with you, Dr. Rahman. What opportunities has this crisis uncovered that will allow stronger partnerships to be fostered between K-12 and higher education communities?
So for me, again, it's just that I'm hearing a lot of, you know, my colleagues on this panel who are in higher ed. Higher ed kind of, you know, is more progressive in that regard. They've been doing a lot of online instruction and been innovative and progressive in terms of how they deliver their content to their students, a lot better than K-12. For me, that's an opportunity for us to learn from them, because I don't think this is going away. And quite frankly, this provides an opportunity for me as a superintendent, as another mode of instruction that we can provide for students in the future, even when we go back to traditional learning. Because for me, for our kids, I think that's the best mode of instruction. However, in some cases, I think this virtual format, it fits the needs of some of our students. So we can learn from our higher ed colleagues in that regard, as well as research, right? So I always preach to my staff and my employees, don't allow the profession to leave behind the professionals, right? So as there's new research and new theory that's coming aboard, you have to keep yourselves abreast of that, so that you keep your toolbox filled with the resources that you need to help our students. Higher ed has always been good at the latest research, the newest trends that are coming down the pipe. And I want to make certain we connect my school district and K-12 in general to higher ed, so that my staff is getting that information so that they can help students.
Awesome, awesome, Dr. Roberts. You have a question in the comment section, Dr. Roberts. Do you think that the public, yeah, you do. This is from classmate Ada Nicole. Do you think that the public schools will open back in the fall? And if so, what capacity?
I do. I do. I think this will be a hybrid format, because I think people are going to tiptoe back into it, so to speak. You're going to have individuals that are going to be conscious of, you know, sending their kids back, so they're going to be a little apprehensive. You're going to have staff members that are apprehensive. I believe there are going to be some social distancing guidelines in place. However, traditional K-12 schooling is imperative to our economy. It can't move without it. So you have to have it when things open back up, quite frankly. And so it will open back up. I don't think it will be the same as it was pre-pandemic right away. I think it will eventually get back to that. But I think in the fall, it will be a hybrid model where there will be some traditional instruction as well as some virtual.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Damon Williams, similar question to Dr. Roberts. Do you feel, being at Northwestern University, do you feel that the undergrad or the university will open back up in this fall, or should students consider taking a gap year?
Thank you for that question. And first, I want to say to Dr. Roberts, I think this is an opportunity for higher ed to learn from K through 12 as well. I think this is a great time for us to partner. I know we're in the Midwest, so look to Northwestern, myself, to see what type of future partnerships that we can have. So I'm really excited about that opportunity as well. Dr. Don, will we open in the fall? We have to open in the fall. Much similar to Dr. Roberts, students are ready. You know, I feel so sorry for our high school seniors because they graduated, they're not having graduations, they're not having proms, so we have to celebrate them. I was on another one of our Xavier colleagues had Hey Sister 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we talked about this. How can we celebrate our graduates? We're going to have to celebrate them in untraditional new ways. You know, while this is a time of uncertainty, this is a time to really look at where our students are. We're in Generation Z. None of us are Generation Z, and they're TikToking and they are doing all types of things. But this is an opportunity for higher ed to really, while we've been innovative and flexible and adaptable, we have been traditional. So this is an opportunity for us to really take an opportunity to just look at our current trends and the theories and research that have been the theories and research to really adjust. One of the great things that I like is that Dr. Raquel said that we gotta adjust. We've had professors that have been teaching the same thing for a long time. I mean, I returned to Xavier University as an administrator. I don't know that people know that, after being gone for almost 10 years, and some professors or people were teaching the same format. So this is an opportunity for new innovative things. But to answer your question, will Northwestern open this fall? I think that all institutions will open, whether how we open is the question. This morning, I read an article in the Chronicle, Inside Higher Ed. There's lots of conversation about what method. And I think someone earlier said, it might've been Mrs. Reese Kimberly, about being on campus or social versus physical distancing. On Friday, I read one article that said there's 5 options, where this morning I read 15 options. So one option might be the traditional way that we left in March, which I doubt seriously. There's, as we said, higher ed is always, it's ever changed. So we can return in the fall, but we'll be practicing physical distancing in classrooms and in our residence halls. There might be blocked assignments or blocked classes. There might be a hybrid version. There might be virtual only. I just think there's a number of options. And what I will say to our students, our seniors, first, accept your offers. You got to accept the offer. I think that students, particularly first generation students, think that an admissions offer means that you've accepted the promissory note, as I say. You have to accept the promissory note so that you can matriculate. For undergrads, I would say have those conversations with financial aid, have those conversations with admissions. Admissions offices are still open. I was just on the Board of Governors call with Xavier Friday. Our enrollment management or admissions office talked about virtual tours and things of that nature. My team, we're doing a lot of those because the students want to see what's the campus look like. And I think we're meeting the demands of our students. For our students that are graduating, that's a whole nother topic. You know, I feel sorry for our students that are graduating because they went through this in 2008. So again, this history repeats itself. But I think that this is an opportunity for us to take on entrepreneurship. And I know you would appreciate that, Dr. Don, as being a medical mogul, but you know, we're gonna really have to look at what are our options for our high school students that are graduating that might have thought about taking a gap year. Maybe it's a time to look at institutions that have not closed admissions, to go ahead and go to community college, to rethink the pathway. maybe not the traditional pathway that you had set, but a new pathway. For our students, our college students and our graduate and professional students that are graduating, maybe this is the opportunity to get some additional education. So I think that we just have to rethink, have 360 grace, as I say, because I know that everyone's expecting every answer. We don't know every answer. We're getting information just as the students are getting information, just as the parents are getting information. But I would say to really stay focused on the experts and the information that's coming down from the different parties, such as the CDC, your local universities, to get that information and not reading stuff online from blogs or hearsay.
Awesome, awesome. And this is just open questions now to the entire panel, and anyone is free, feel free to answer. And again, our audience, if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section. Are you all concerned about the psychological impact that this has made on all of our students, regardless if they're in kindergarten, 8th grade, graduate students? I know I am. I know that as far as mental health, and I'm an optimistic person. I'm also a realist. And in looking at previous epidemics, we find in studies that PTSD, depression are the two most common conditions as a result of trauma or tragedies such as this. And there was a study in Canada, a very small study, but we don't have any research. We don't have any clinical evidence that relates to anything like this. I mean, during the Great Depression was different times. I mean, if you look at the technology advancement and all these things that we have access to and healthcare, how that is advanced. So we really don't have good, solid knowledge in terms of the psychological impact. But my concern is that usually psychological impacts come after the trauma. They fall after the pandemic. They fall when things go back to the new abnormal, if you will. Have you all seen any type of psychological impact starting within your students? I know that Ms. Reese mentioned, and I thank God for Xavier having access to counselors that are there that can talk to students about this, because we all know that college for us was an awesome time. I know for me, I can definitely speak to myself. And not only was I focused on my academics, but like you're saying, lifelong friendships, learning what I'm good at, maybe playing music that I had no idea that, this was enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
This type of classes we took. So anyone can respond. Yes, please.
Well, actually, we're doing similar to what Kim Reese is saying that Xavier has been doing with regard to, kind of making sure that we disperse as much information as we can regarding resources for support and to help students emotionally, mentally, financially in these different ways. But I have a 5-year-old. So on Easter Sunday, her verbal response was very alarming to me and my husband. It really brought us both to pause. And it was, she basically, I wouldn't say she lashed out, but she expressed herself. I miss my friends. I miss school. You have your friends. I don't have my friends. Because she's seeing us still social and interact. She's seeing me work as well as interact using these technologies. And even when she's had the opportunity in these recent weeks to have some more structured time with her class, once a week at a pre-K 4, she's heading into kindergarten. So I'm very much concerned about how her emotional, how she'll be able to process her emotions, and how this is going to impact her relationship, socialization, the lack of the shift in structure for the day. And how will she, if they go back and it's more remote distance, how do you get these younger children to adjust to it, and the teachers, how are they going to manage that shift from being in the classroom to trying to deliver information, remotely or in an online way? So I've seen that emotional unraveling in the outbursts and the behavioral changes in my own child. So I do have concerns.
And my prayer is that maybe this will actually allow us to pivot in a direction where we make mental health mandatory for all institutions. That's a part of it, beginning from when they first start school. That's a dream that I've always had and foreseeing in my lifetime. And I'm praying that that is a part of the of the answer when we return, when the students return to school.
I would add, go ahead. You can go ahead.
My concern, and we're seeing it very much so with our students, we have to realize, and I think we forget often that school, especially for our K-12 students, school is their safe place. It's their place away from whatever is going on at home. For some, it's their place where and like Rocky said, there's their place where it's the structure, it's there. For some of them, it's the only place they have where they get a meal during the day. It's the only place. I've been reading research or what have you, and CPS reports have dropped because they're no longer visible to the people who care to report that there may be a problem at home. So psychologically, our kids are quietly suffering. We have, you have your 5-year-old at home, Raquel. I have mine at home. They're able to express themselves with us without any judgment or what have you. We're there to support them, but we have so many more who don't have that outlet. And so that buildup is there. So I do agree with you, Dawn. It's the after effect. But unfortunately, unlike the other events we've gone through in the last few years, we didn't go right back to school to catch up. We're going to be almost 6 months out without that direct interaction with those kiddos who need school because they need that safe place 5 days a week that they're not getting. So that's the concern we have, but we have our counselors are doing an amazing job making sure they have their Google Hangout classes, just like the teachers. Our teachers are doing an amazing job with parades and just making sure they see them and get to just say hi. But it's that everyday structure and just having a meal and someone smiling and saying, I care about you every day, that those kids may go 6 months without, that we'll see a big storm from after this is over.
I was just going to add, for the graduate student and professional student population, I think this is a key time to talk about wellness and mental health. Traditionally, it's not something we talk about, having a therapist, having a counselor. And to answer your question directly, I have seen where my students, we started off, it was very important for me not to wait on guidance, to show leadership and to move forward and to have an open discussion about mental health and how students were feeling. PhD students, master's students at an institution, particularly students of color at an institution like Northwestern, they've already been taxed. They're already stressed out. They're already feeling different levels of different things, if it's not posturing or just having needs to feel very productive. So we started off with having conversations around it's okay to feel unproductive. It's okay to need a sense of community. It's okay to be stressed out. We ourselves as staff members talked about our needs and having therapists or seeing teletherapy, because I think in our community, again, it's not something we talk about. Certain generations, it's moved. With millennials and Generation Z, it's chic to have a therapist, you hear it, but with some of our graduate students, the population is very diverse. Diversity with identity, sexual orientation, gender, ethnicity, but overall, that's not something that people talk about. So we really have been trying to, and we've really been on the cutting edge at Northwestern by providing therapists according to ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, because we want to meet the students where they are. We want the students to understand that this is important, but we also want the students to know it's okay. I think before we got started, I was sharing with my colleague, you all, that students are not okay with being unproductive. They're not. They need to feel like they're doing something so they can be the next deans of schools of communications or the next superintendent or the next violinist, a fundraiser, or working in our community. So yes, that's what I'm seeing in the graduate student population.
Awesome, awesome. Quentin, I know you had something that you want to share.
I just wanted to reiterate what my colleagues have just said, that I think that structure is key to the wellness and just good, stable mental health of students as well as teachers. And for any teachers that are watching, this is not a time to check out. This is not a time to have an extended vacation at home. This is a time for us as educators to really connect with our students on a deeper level. And there is an opportunity for us as educators to reinvent, to create, and connect with people on a more human level than we may not have been able to do if we were in person. And so, especially for those teachers who teach K through 12, not to check out. That follow-up is so important. It's like fundraising, right? You know, you have your goal of fundraising, but the follow-up is the most important part of fundraising, right? It's the same thing, that if you assign an assignment, follow up with those students, because the structure is exactly what they need. And it's very easy for teachers to say, well, I'll do it one day a week, and that's just not enough. And so our absence as educators from the virtual classroom can have a negative impact on the mental health of our students. And so we have to be there and not check out. So that's what I wanted to just mention.
Thank you for mentioning that, Quentin. I know it's 7 p.m. and out of respect of your time, if any of you have to go, please do so. I just want to thank everyone here for joining us, for being a part of the roundtable, for discussing these important topics. I do have a couple of questions from the audience that I would like to ask, but I just wanted to make sure that, thank you all.
I'm going to sign off and say goodbye, but it was so great to connect with everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Morris. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you. So we have a question. Frank Colosso asks, have there been any discussions or collaborations with existing cyber high schools concerning best practices related to online learning? It's a very good question. Are you all aware if this has been a collaboration?
Can you repeat that again? I'm trying to follow the questions, but I didn't see that.
Yes, have there been any discussions or collaborations with existing cyber high schools or cyber schools concerning best practices related to online learning? It's a very good question. You all know of any?
I don't. I just know that there's a lot of sharing, and I don't know if Ro knows anything, Dr. Roberts knows anything about that. But I know that I think that many people are doing that on their own. I think that's something that parents are doing. I know that, for example, my daughter's school has tried to send out resources in places, links to things that are going to continue that. And a lot of it does begin with homeschooling type sources, or there are a lot of, I've seen a lot of sharing of homeschooling resources that can be implemented. And I've seen that because I have a small child, but I don't know otherwise. And coming into the students that come into college that I've worked with, that's an area where it's interesting. And you see an increase in homeschool students that are coming into college. It's still not as prevalent. There is prevalence in our community, in communities of color, but not the prevalence of non-communities of color with regard to homeschooling. But I do see parents sharing the resources and tools that are a part of these homeschool platforms. And I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but and honestly, and Ro, Doc, you can speak to this. I don't know if there's been time to collaborate with entities outside of your institution or peer cohort group, because that's one of the actual matter of fact, we were working on a partnership with a community college, for example. And that pretty much is on hold. Well, it has stopped because we've had to shift gears and start focusing our energy on making sure we can deliver the curriculum we currently have. Now, the time to make those tweaks and adjustments to merge and intertwine other teaching methods will come, I think, over the summer. And I think there are going to be some differences in terms of how, especially K through 12, I would imagine, do their preparations and trainings for getting back to the school year, the continuing education courses and things like that. But for higher ed, I know we're just trying to make sure that all of our faculty, especially those that were not teaching online before or utilizing the, platforms to get ready. So they are doing using clip notes to get through this spring semester, but they're going to have to make some major adjustments or be prepared to be flexible as we move forward, I think.
You all, just want to tell you, we can do a hard stop at 7:30. Okay, so just wanted to let you know. There's another question too. Do you think that this pandemic has brought the importance of teachers to the national forefront? Do you think appropriate compensation will follow on a national level?
Please let me jump on that one. Yes, I think, for so long, and I'm not sure what happens in other states, I can tell you in the state of Michigan, teachers have not been given the respect that they deserve. The education as a profession has not been given the respect that it deserves, and I'm referring to many of the legislation that comes out of Lansing, which is our capital, with no input from practitioners. Our governor just instituted an advisory council where she can get some advice from practitioners in terms of informing her decisions and legislation. I'm fortunate to be part of that group. But before that, there was nothing coming from a practitioner perspective that informed legislation, and you could tell that everything that was coming out, there was no respect for the profession, and it has come out at a national level as well. Now, I hope that on the heels of this crisis and parents understanding just how high a skill level it takes to get 20 to 30 individuals in a room, manage their behavior, and get them to learn something, that's a high skill level that you have to be able to do that. I hope people have an understanding of that now that they're at home trying to do the same thing with 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. And on the heels of that people advocate for the profession to be respected, and that respect to come through the form of compensation and other avenues.
Awesome.
To say just to something, Dr. Roberts, I also have been talking to my friends about this and the importance of parents. And you don't have to be a highly educated parent to teach your child discipline. Because, I've said that a lot of this this distance learning that we're doing is also about children having discipline and respect for school. And so I think it is going to behoove parents to begin to look at how we prepare our children, our young kids, for their educational journey. And I can say, from my point of view, we had lost death in our family early in April. And someone asked me, how was my kids doing? I'm like, at this point, they've been schooling themselves, they've been raising themselves, but there's also a level of discipline that has been instilled in them from children. So they have in their rooms, they have a whiteboard, they have the times written when they have their Zoom classes. They'll set their alarms. They will say, can you make sure I'm up? But I think there is a level of discipline that any parent can instill. That's something you don't have to have. We always talk about the education level. You don't have to have a lot of education just to instill discipline. and the importance of education in your child. And so I think that's going to be something parent, advocates, schools, just the community is going to have to encourage parents to do.
Amen. I actually want to go just around, and if you all have any last minute thoughts or any important remarks that you'd like to make. I know there's some other questions, but I do respect your time, with your families. And I'll start with Dr. Brown or anyone. It's not enforced. You like to make some last minute remarks or final remarks.
Well, I want to echo the sentiments that everyone have shared, especially with regard to, thank you, Dr. Roberts, for sharing with us the importance of placing the value that we should place on that skill set of teaching, because we know that I recall, during our time, people would, there with the saying goes, oh, those that can do, those that can't teach. And that makes absolutely no sense. And I don't know, there's been a culture of historically over decades, I'll say the last 40 years, of encouraging people to become teachers if they can't think of anything else, as opposed to encouraging people to become teachers because of the skill level that's required and the impact that it makes. But it's hard to argue that when you have other professions that require skill and impact lives. It's a life and death skill, but the compensation is not there. And that goes back to what Dr. Roberts said regarding us being in a capitalist society. And it's in capitalism, there's always a permanent built-in underclass. And we have to understand these structural isms and how they are further exacerbated and manifest in these types of occurrences. So when we have these types of tragedies, they always pull the Band-Aid off, and it's a Band-Aid that's pulled off because the problem has never been fixed adequately or addressed in the first place. The foundation is broken. So we're looking at trying to make repairs and improvements on an already broken and flawed foundation. Because when we look at education, especially, it was like, okay, yeah, we were educating people to be able to service the industries, whether it was in, once we got into the Industrial Revolution. And that's what I'm saying, this is changing, because we were kind of being misled to thinking it's all about a service industry. But we see the service industries are now being hit hard. So the two mainstays have been education and healthcare. And there's no coincidence there that those are education is needed to keep people thinking. But if we continue down the path of dumbing things down and not requiring our students to be problem solvers and thinkers, and even if we are delivering this curriculum remotely, we still have to make sure it's not just redundant, that it is still promoting analytical and critical thinking. So you're looking at paradigm shifts in the midst of multiple paradigm shifts, and how does this impact our communities that are already suffering? And we see this again and again and again. And I do appreciate you and applaud you for having this diverse panel of educators or people that are, playing different roles in the system, because we do need to have these connections, because we need to understand that they're different. Higher ed and, primary and secondary education are different, but they need to work together in order to produce the outcomes we want for society. So I just thank you for not just having a K through 12 panel or a higher ed panel, but for bringing it together. I think that's so very important and needed. So kudos to you, Dr. Dawn.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Appreciate that.
So
Yeah.
I would like to say, and I want to leave with this, I think from a human resources point of view, if anything, the research on teacher burnout and teacher preparation programs to prepare our teachers for these types of events, how to cope, how to work with our students, how to work with our parents, because we go in sometimes with the utopia of what our classrooms will be, what everything will look like. And I think the research to help teachers prepare for these types of events will be so much more beneficial for them. But again, teacher burnout is already there. So if there's any appreciation for teachers, when we hear teacher burnout, this is a time where that should be at the forefront of what we should be doing to assist our teachers just on a regular day, in a regular school year. Also, just going back off Dr. Roberts earlier, just making sure we keep communicating with our legislators and our representatives on just the funding for schools, because I'm very blessed to work in a district where half of our premiums are covered by our school district. Our school board is very supportive. Our teachers need their health insurance, so they are able to continue to get that social and emotional support from counselors, because this is a challenging job every day. And we're losing teachers. We're losing teachers coming out of higher ed because possibly pay or just the teacher burnout from student teaching. So hopefully all of these issues will come to the forefront more than ever, so we can make sure we're preparing just for a normal school year, not just when we're having these types of events. And Dr. Dawn, I want to thank you again, one, for bringing our XU alum together, especially those who are not necessarily our pre-med majors, but to focus on and showcase the other areas of Xavier University that were so beneficial to all of us. So thank you so much.
Hey, Xavier produces more than pre-med students, y'all. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And you know what, you all, the audience, now is the time to know who your legislators is. Know who your mayor is, know who your representatives are. I mean, now is the time to write these letters. Many of these letters are accessible to you. They're already pre-written. Seriously, I just signed a letter yesterday about how to get more funding for mental health in school districts in Houston. So you call them, wear their number out, okay? Because it does start with voting. We have to make sure that our districts have the funding, right? In order to provide mental health services for our teachers, not only for our teachers, but for our students as well, all right? Anyone else has any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, Dr. Don, thank you for putting this on. It was a pleasure meeting you all that I don't know. Fellow Xavierites, I think this is great. We need to do more of this. And let's stay in touch and keep advocating for our communities and certainly for Xavier as we move forward. All right. All right.
Awesome. Anyone else? No? All right. Oh, yes, Damon. Yes, please.
Yes, I would just end with, again, 3 things. Celebrating. You know, this is a time that it's just been so much negativity. We got to celebrate our seniors. We got to celebrate those that are matriculating to college or to the workforce. We got to celebrate ourselves. We got to celebrate. I mean, I would piggyback with Dr. Don for having such a great topic and pulling Xavierites together. Kimberly, you would appreciate this, give back. This is a time that those that can give back to the institution. Grace, I would say, you know, let's give each other grace. I like to say 360 grace. We don't know everything. Let's be flexible. Let's be patient. Our students, our parents, ourselves. And of course, diversity and inclusion, I have to say inclusive excellence. We have to work with inclusive excellence. We have to be our best selves, get rid of the bias, some of the unconscious and explicit things that come to mind, because we do have things happening out there. So we're just being our most inclusive, excellent self. So thank you again, Dr. Don.
Amen. Thank you all. Thank you all. I really do appreciate this distinguished panel representing Xavier University of Louisiana. Thank you, classmates, mentors. You all are my friends. I really do appreciate the time, and please thank your families for us as well, for sharing your expertise, recommendations, and perspectives on how this pandemic has impacted us. And, you know, let us leave reassured with hope and with grace that we will make it through it, like we have everything else. And we have to collaborate. We have to connect to one another. I think that is one of the key messages that I actually learned from this panel this evening, is that connection does matter. And it's the time for us to get together and make sure that we're all okay. And that we Yes, that we support one another in each of our individual initiatives and group initiatives as well. So thank you all. And thanks to audience for your time as well. Thank you so much. And please check out another Live with Dr. Dawn this weekend.
All right, way to go. Think HBCU.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yes, L to HBCUs.
And complete your census forms because that impacts
Yes,
our education.
that's right.
Complete your 2020 census.
Say that again, please.
Complete the 2020 census. Put them in the mail. It takes 3 minutes to fill it out.
Yes.
30 seconds per person in your household, if that.
Determines the resources for our communities, you all. Please, please, please complete the census. Please. All right.
Stay
Y'all have a
healthy.
good evening. Continue to have these discussions with your family, your neighbors, and your communities. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.